Howdy folks, Doc here with LastPass Tool. Well, I finally decided to give one of these a try. A lot of people have asked about them. I've seen a lot of videos about them. I personally was not interested at all in it. Not because there's anything terribly wrong, at least I thought, but I didn't like the shape. I didn't like the blade. So that was it. I decided to stay away from it. It's kind of a piece of art as far as that big arc. It's almost got an Asian flavor, but I really don't like that design too much. And I've made that known, but I'm going to go ahead and review this thing tip to tail and point out some things that I like and dislike, my opinions, but I would certainly never talk you out of carrying whatever knife you want. In fact, the more the merrier, and I'm glad Harbor Freight's even exploring this space. But personally, no, it doesn't work for me. And I kind of knew that going in, but I was going to keep an open mind, and it actually is way better quality-wise than I was expecting. But there are some things to me that are just not right for my style of carry. So, first of all, let's start at the tip. It is D2 steel in the blade, big flat grind right here, no problem with that. It's quite reminiscent of some of the Spyderco blades. I am not a super fan of that design. They work great, but the tip is usually where I think about a lot of the function. I've had great luck, say, with the Benchmades, with their Griptilian design, classic Mel Pardue blade. And I have made it known that I didn't like the Klein blade on their folding knife because that tip is just so sharp and gets in the way. Now, it can be great for certain things, but it also, you will cut yourself with this tip. It will get in the way. There's just something about the angle geometry where it comes to this point, super thin. You probably will break it under normal hard use. It is a very thin blade up at the front end. The D2 steel's great as long as it's hardened correct. Looks like it's finished very well, kind of satin almost. I don't know if those are tool marks or polishing marks on it. It looks like a large pivot, but there is a tiny little screw head, so I haven't pulled that ceramic part apart. The bearings are fine. Ceramic bearings right now, I mean, that's almost a must for a lot of these. This is a $40 knife. You can get into other Chinese-made high-quality knives in that same price point. Some people have thought that this was a design either taken or borrowed or rented from a designer. There's a knife called the Glimpse, which looks very much like this. The handle, to me, it is heavy on the handle side. That was something I really noticed right away. I thought the overall knife was very heavy, but it's pretty much the same weight as these other knives. It's about 3.9 ounces, which is up there a little bit, but it's not bad. But anyway, the handle, very stout feeling. It has fairly thick G10 scales with skeletonized, looks like stainless steel liners, pretty thick, and then this massive chunk of metal back here. That's one thing they ought to get rid of. And this huge lanyard hole. I mean, that's almost more like for a name badge sized lanyard than what you've got here. I did take the screws out. I'll get to that in a moment. Pocket clip that is probably the worst I've ever had. I'll go over that in a sec. But anyway, overall, I don't care for the shape. It is artistic. It's almost like a Spyderco lum shape, very Asian, but definitely a unique knife. Maybe that's what they were going for. I would have thought they'd go after something more utilitarian. Now, let's jump into a few things. I mentioned the blade. The blade steel's great. The blade shape I'm not a fan of, especially for a work knife. Does have a nice finger choil up here. It is a little sharp up at this end, but that's kind of common on a lot of things. If you're going to use the choil, you might want to dull that down just a little bit. This I don't like. It's a liner lock, which is totally fine, but the primary indexing point is on this heavily jimped, thin piece of metal. You can see how far that sticks up, whereas if I go to another knife here, it's again a liner lock, but it's recessed right there. There's plenty of room to grab this thing and move it. But on this thing, I mean, it's huge and it hurts. It's right on the finger fold, right on that first knuckle, and it just digs in. I don't know why they did that. I can see elements that were designed on paper. Another one, and when I get to the end, I'm going to show Harbor Freight what I think they should do for a knife. I will present that as a solution. This to me is a piece of art which might explain the fancy box. This flipping handle here. Okay, first of all, the detent mechanism that holds the blade closed should be balanced for the amount of force to initiate and then provide the inertia to fully open the blade. That's a common thing. But if you look at this, it's a huge, absolutely monstrous, shark fin of a flipping handle here with zero texture. Absolutely zero. It is polished smooth. That's crazy. If you look at this one, on this giant Sentry here, you can see it's actually even bigger than that. I guess hard to see with, unless I line them up. It sticks out further. See the jimping there? That is classic on about everything. And being able to launch the blade, a lot of times I really have to push hard. The detent is super strong, and my finger slides on this, which means it concentrates a lot of the effort right at the end. And look, I'm pushing hard on this thing. It's not opening. Look at the dent in my finger. It pops open eventually. I know it will, so I'll keep pushing, but it hurts. It is not a smooth opening, and there is no texture there, which is why they need such a huge shark fin, my guess. They put a little bit of texture there, and you could get a nice snap on it, maybe even roll that up just a little bit, so you could get a better angle on it. This one, you're almost pushing down and in. Now, you notice I keep opening it like that. A lot of times I want multiple ways to open a knife. I can open it with my thumb there. I can pull the blade up. I can flip it. That's classic. However, here, they've swedged this, and it's super smooth. Look at that. I am not faking. I cannot lift that out of there. I cannot pinch this and pull it up. You can see I started, there we go, I got it on that one. Try it if you've got one of these. It's near impossible to lift the blade out, and a lot of times I don't want to flick it out. I want to be able to open it smoothly, so I'm not maybe scaring somebody or something. So that one, that's weird. Whoops. On the Klein, there's enough texture there. I can pull that. Benchmades, of course, piece of cake. It will stick if you've got an auto knife. That's deliberate. Here's Milwaukee, on their inexpensive one. Here's the liner. You can see the liner is just barely visible. That's how it's done. You want easy to push it, but you don't want it sticking up, that far above everything. So anyway, the Milwaukee there, close it. This one has a push button, but I can easily grab it. There's lots of ways. Something to think about. Let's go to probably what I think is the weakest point of this entire knife, and that is the pocket clip. The design of this is pure art, zero function. Well, not zero, a little tiny bit of function. You can actually get this to work as a pocket clip. First of all, it is incredibly stiff. That can be good, but this doesn't appear to be any kind of a spring steel. So a lot of these, as they loosen up, you just unscrew these and then bend it a little bit and screw it back on, and you're good to go. But this one, I think once you bend it, you're going to be in a bit of trouble with the design of this. Plus, look at this. I'm going to slide this up. Pretend that's a pocket. Look how much of that thing sticks up out of your pocket. You see that? But then, because of the design, if you look, this is at an angle right there. This slice in is actually, that's the angle right there. So what happens in a pocket carry, if you can get this thing over the seam of your pocket, which might be a challenge, plus you can see it's really distorted, the way this bends, because this has zero flexibility down at this end. Whereas if you look at the other designs, you can see you can get some flex all the way. So what happens is this thing wants to seat like that. So it rotates if I'm wearing it like this, and then slides out away from the seam of the pocket, because that is actually, this right here, let me get that lined up, that is actually the angle, if you look right there, of that cut. I'm at the top of both ends because they've got this at a slope through there. So it tends to rotate and then carry across your pocket. You know, if this is your pocket, it carries across. Hideously uncomfortable, I found. But again, your mileage may vary. You know, the lanyard hole I pointed out, but also the screws. Some of the reviews said the screws fell out. So I pulled the screws out. First, I wanted to see if I could get rid of that big standoff there, that really heavy, jimped standoff. But it appears to be part of the liner mechanism. But anyway, here are the screws. And two of them, guess which two, if you can, were really tight and two were really loose. This one here was very tight. Get rid of that thing. This one was very loose. This one was very loose. And the other one right there was very tight. That's how it came out. A little bit of Loctite there. Most of it's worn off, or they were hoping, I don't know if it's the manufacturer, but these never really engaged. These two with a bunch of Loctite on them. They did not engage tightly. They spun out quite easily, where the other two really took a bunch of effort to crack loose. So something in the design there. As far as the operation, you know, the smoothness, that's great. I like the look. I actually do like the Asian flair of it, that big arc. But as far as a utility knife, not my favorite. And the swedge gets in the way. I don't know, I guess that's art there. It's not really adding a structural element, and it makes it near impossible to open the knife. So what do I think they should do? Well, one thing is maybe produce something like this. This is about 40 bucks. This Sencut, which is part of WE Knives, or the Civivi, which I also review. Here we go, G10 handle. Doesn't have a D2 steel. It's got one of the more mundane steel blades. But to me, a much more useful design. Look at the tiny little flipper handle. Look at that. And it's got jimping, so you can easily flip it open. It has ceramic cage bearings. This one is known as the Traxler. It sells for about 40 bucks. That's what the cost of this is, average manufacturing price. That they retail it for 50, but stainless steel liners, nice pass-through, very strong, excellent design utility blade. Something like this to me is a lot more functional in the workspace than this design here. But doesn't look quite as good. It looks like a utility knife. Look at that low profile there. A little higher than I like, but nothing near as abrasive as that saw blade there, as you can see. The tips of these cleaver styles are excellent, very strong as far as the blade profile goes. Look at that deep pocket carry. So if I line those up, that's the difference right there in terms of pocket carry height. And I think deep pocket is a lot safer. It isn't just to hide your knife. It means it doesn't get caught on things. So that's great. And then it's got an easy to use pocket clip. I've been carrying this one a lot. I have carried this for several days now. I've really tried it, and honestly, I skip putting it on my pocket because this is just too hard to work with. I just drop it in my pocket. But anyway, Harbor Freight, I think, could do very well with this. If they wanted to do carbon fiber inlays, go for it. It's not as, doesn't have to be an ornamental knife, but they could get a much higher performance knife for the same number of dollars with an excellent G10 handle, quality blade steel, in a really functional design. Anyway, that's my suggestion. So maybe give them a call and see if you can get something like that in the store, because to me this is more of a collectible. Now, please disagree with me. Tell me where I'm wrong, but I do find that this knife, for a work knife, has some significant limitations. I'm glad Icon's doing it. I'm happy that I bought it so I could play around with it. I mean, that's how things work. No, I didn't use a coupon. I don't use coupons there. Oh, people have asked why. Half the time it's because the stuff I want is not in stock, like this knife. If I had a coupon, a lot of times I don't have a coupon that matches, and I'm not in town very often, so I kind of have to do it when I'm there. So hopefully it works. But anyway, that's my suggestion. If you like this kind of stuff, great. It's totally worth the money. But as far as the function, I'm not as impressed. And that's just me. Your mileage may vary. And with that, Doc out.